Jeffrey Stein, who has written extensively on Elon Musk and his efforts. And John, I keep harping on the metaphor, but it's an apt one. And I don't feel it's completely coincidental, but the chainsaw in the wood chipper from Elon Musk is now all of a sudden a scalpel. That's a big change. And it's a big change in the type of rhetoric that we've heard from the president. What do you think it is that he's hearing that prompted this?
I think it's quite obvious, John. The laws of politics often track the laws of physics. And the laws of physics in politics, you have a wind at your back, you go that way. You advance your agenda. You say, I have the force behind me. Let's do what I want to do. When you have headwinds, you go backwards. You go that way. And that's what the president has right now. He's hearing it from members of Congress about Elon Musk. He's hearing it from some of his own cabinet secretaries that he's coming into my department and messing with my business, and it's causing me problems because he's firing people that I need. Somebody's gone, and I need them at their desk. So the president is hearing it. Republicans in Congress are being pretty quiet right now, but when you take what they're hearing about Musk and then what they're hearing from the business community and their farmers and others about the tariffs, you know, the president in his speech blamed Joe Biden a lot. The president today blamed globalists for the markets. Republicans in Congress with narrow majorities in both chambers, a tiny, tiny majority of the House, are worried voters in 2 years will blame them. And they're sending that message to the White House very early in the Trump term.
Jeff, you know, you got terrific reporting on Elon Musk and all of his efforts here. How much of a change do you expect from what was announced today?
Yeah, well, thanks for the kind words. And I just want to emphasize that while everything John is saying is completely correct, that Musk seems to have been dealt a bit of a blow in the White House today, we know that Musk is not just dependent, I think this is a really crucial point, is not just dependent on cabinet secretaries with independent power bases confirmed by the Senate to execute his agenda. And what I mean by that is that DOGE has very successfully gotten Musk allies, Musk deputies installed at crucial sort of nodes of power within the government, whether that's the Social Security Administration, where an ally of Musk is currently the acting commissioner, the General Services Administration, which is in charge of all federal buildings, the Office of Personnel Management. I could go on and on because this is the sort of the HR department for the government. Musk has people throughout the government that are kind of his people. And while, you know, it might be useful for Trump to say, you know, Secretary Hegseth, Secretary Rubio, you don't have to do everything he says. He has allies who can do quite a lot on their own. And just, you know, further to emphasize the point that Musk might have a lot of runway left, a lot of the Trump, you know, cabinet appointees agree with Musk's substantive changes to the government. So they are on board with a lot of the things he wants to do. They might want more consultation. They might want more sort of ability to recommend things. But there's, I think, still a good reason to believe that we're in the very early innings of DOGE.
These are great points. We're going to have to see what happens the next few days and what we see publicly the next few days. John, you've got a report that we're going to show in just a few minutes from Canada on the discussion over tariffs there. But here in Washington, again, just a very blatant retreat from President Trump on what was a signature issue during the campaign and a signature issue during the first few weeks. And these were the tariffs to Canada and Mexico. I just wonder what you think is driving this. Is this the stock markets? Are these the headwinds you're talking about? How concerned is this White House about the economic message out there?
Well, I would say at the top, and just like the previous conversation, Trump is saying things about Elon Musk because of the political incoming. As was just noted, let's see what he actually does, if he actually does it, because he says things a lot, and you see if the power actually shifts. But he's getting incoming. Same on tariffs. He's just getting, he does follow the stock market. You know, he didn't said that's not the reason today, and he said globalists are doing that, but he does follow the stock market, and he likes to think that everything under him will go up. But he's also getting a lot of incoming, including from his own Commerce Secretary, who's gone on a couple of business shows, Fox Business and CNBC, to try to nudge the president along a little bit, that it's causing a lot of disruption. The main point from people, even people who support the tariffs and even people who oppose tariffs, say, Mr. President, make up your mind. Make up your mind. Businesses need to plan. And that's what they're getting a lot of income from allies in the business community, that make up your mind. Even if we don't like it, we want to know what it is.
Federal budget, and I can tell you for this next fiscal year, we are going to be taking a flamethrower to the waste that Elon Musk is
better, because these midterms don't go the right way. We're looking at, you know, the Democrats are already planning to impeach President Trump. That is the truth. The investigations are going to start, and they're going to go into town on you all, on the Republican Party. So, and again, you got here 5 minutes ago. Look, he's already getting the Ingram angle treatment. Congressman, great to see.
Almost every industry in Kentucky has come to me and said it will hurt our industry and push up prices of homes, cars, And so I'm going to continue to argue against tariffs. Should he back off of it if it starts to hurt the constituents?
When we start losing, you back off. You know, there's such a thing as a strategic retreat. At the end of the day, I think we have more leverage than any other nation, but we got to be smart, and we don't have all the leverage.
President Trump promised to lower the cost of living. He has done none of that. And the Trump administration and Elon Musk are demonstrating one thing with all these random cuts. They don't care if you get sick. They don't care if you get injured. They don't care if you can't pay your bills. And they don't care if you're safe. All these random cuts they're making in all these departments that they don't even hardly know very well are hurting the American people. How is putting veterans out of work lowering the cost of living? How is taking away food from children lowering the cost of living? How is kicking women off of health care who get Medicaid lowering the cost of living? So I know that these things are distractions that we're talking about, but why won't Donald Trump deliver on his promises? Because he lies. That's why. They're doing nothing.
We're going to fix it.
We're doing it for 40 days.
Okay, right.
But you try to take a victory lap for the CHIPS and Science Act, for all these investments coming into the United States. So you're either going to take credit or not. Donald Trump is a president. He promised a lower cost of living. He is cutting jobs across the board from civil servants who have to support their families.
You believe in government jobs. You want more government jobs.
No, actually, I want jobs that actually help people. Do you know what civil servants do? They keep our air clean. They keep our water clean. They keep our food safe. Don't interrupt.
They take taxpayer money to
You know
fund
what?
the whole thing.
Let me
They also pay taxes.
Yes.
Wait, you're saying they take
It takes taxpayer money to fund it.
It
Well,
does.
but they're employed by
This
the
is the
government.
Democratic
They're
plan.
doing more
government
They are
jobs.
not for the American.
I'm going to be totally honest. I don't know what's really going on. Which front should we look at? If we look at the economy right now, with all of the Elon cuts, it's not leaving things particularly healthy, especially with various different medical assistants. From what I can work out, this is just the outside looking in. Those who need Medicare, Medicaid, etc., are going to be in trouble. And I suspect, I could be wrong, some of those people who will be in trouble will be lower earning MAGA supporters. But it doesn't seem to have actually touched base with them. It appears that they're still very happy that the administration is doing the thing of owning the libs with all of the, well, it's cultural politics. That's the best description. Number one. Number two, Ukraine. Now, I find it incredible the fact that there's a possibility that those who escaped what was going on in Ukraine were offered visas in America may have their visas revoked. No fault of their own, just pure politics. In any other language, that would be called collateral damage. It is just, what is going on there? And then the other thing is this, well, it's a level of sheer hypocrisy, contradiction, two-face. Al Green, during the State of the Union, he did, let's call it a Boebert stroke Marjorie Taylor Greene, who interrupted and jeered Biden. He didn't really have a hearing or anything. It's called, I suppose, freedom of speech. Weirdly enough, Marjorie Taylor Greene's boyfriend actually came out this, what day was it? Thursday, and said he didn't agree with Al Green being booted out for expressing his opinions. Because this is the way I see it. So, Squeaker Johnson, etc., I don't think that guy's serious. He's all for it. Now, in the present terms, yes, the Republicans have control of the House and the Senate. But let's go down the line. Once it starts, how are you getting that genie back in the bottle? Really weird thing to do. Now, of course, the President of the United States of America is known for insulting people. Thin-skinned, because the way it works, you're not allowed to insult anyone that's MAGA. Anyone that happens to be a supporter of Trump can't say anything. But they're allowed to dish it out. Now, Nicole Wallace and Rachel Maddow, he needs his enemies. That's the thing. All the sycophants doesn't really care about. Trump needs enemies. He needs to have somebody to focus his anger or frustration on. Today it's Nicole Wallace and Rachel Maddow who made a comment. Well, they made comments after the State of the Union. I mean, everyone's got their opinions on that. But it's now being blown out of proportion, where he's basically saying MSNBC, they're not going to do it, should fire Rachel Maddow and Nicole Wallace because they made a comment that he didn't agree with. Many people may not agree with comments that Judge Jeanine Weinbox makes on Fox, but I don't think we've ever asked for her to be fired. But of course, it doesn't really matter because this is where we find ourselves in 2025. And the last thing I would say is I have no idea what day it is of this administration. I know we're in double figures, and I know we're past day one. Am I wrong? I could be just wittering on here. I could have sworn he said on day one, so many different things were going to happen. Did he mean day one plus 100, day one plus 35? What is actually going on here? The only thing I will say that he got wrong, and I think I will improvise here, on day one, fake news, worst impression ever, on day one, Elon Musk will assume position of running the country of America, vice president and in charge of whatever he likes to do. I would say this though, who actually is investigating Elon Musk? Because are we saying, because he has so much money in the world, it's the only person in the world who has never done anything worth any government anywhere having a look into? Just asking a question. Love to know your thoughts. Comment section now.
Director Gabbard, do you see this as actually a threat to the United States that Europe would not share intel with us? And what is your reaction to that report?
I'm laughing, Laura, because we've heard this story before, and generally it's coming from those who are either former leaders within our own intelligence community who are trying to politicize their titles and their positions to try to undermine President Trump's peace mission and agenda. And perhaps this is now coming from people within Europe, again, who would like to see endless war continue. The answer to your question is no. I can tell you just today alone, I met with 2 different senior intelligence leaders from Europe who came here to visit, to introduce themselves and to say, hey, we really look forward to continuing to work with you. I've met with other European leaders earlier this week who've come to Washington, D.C. for the same reason, really strengthening, continuing to strengthen that relationship and letting us know how much they rely on us for our support and the intelligence that we share. President Trump is the peace president, and he is putting the interests of the American people and our taxpayers first and foremost. This is something that he campaigned on, that he promised the American people that he would deliver. And so when you look at the decisions that he's made over the last 45 days that he's been in office, he has been very consistent and very focused on keeping those promises and delivering very real and historically quick results.
Well, for the record, the worst inflation in this country was in 1980. For the record, the economy that he was left by President Biden was not a catastrophe. It was literally the best economy in the world and was described by The Economist magazine as the envy of the world. That was the economy that was left to Donald Trump by Joe Biden. For the record, Social Security is not paying benefits in large numbers to 300-year-old people or 250-year-old people or 200-year-old people or 150-year-old people. In fact, the idea of Social Security as a bastion of massive fraud and overpayment is completely false. For the record, U.S. auto company CEOs are not psyched and delighted and so excited about President Trump's economic policies, including his tariffs. Take, for example, the CEO of Ford, Jim Farley, who said that Trump's tariff policies would, quote, blow a hole in the U.S. auto industry that, quote, we've never seen. The president flat out lied about U.S. versus European spending to support what used to be about $125 billion to Ukraine's defense. Europe has committed about $259 billion. The president radically misstating the character and quantity of our relative support for what used to be our ally, now appears to be only Europe's ally and no longer ours. For the record, Joe Biden did not close over 100 power plants. There were more utility-sized power plants up and running in the United States when Joe Biden left office than when he achieved office. For the record, there is no EV mandate. For the record, oil and gas production in the United States hit all-time records under President Joe Biden. For the record, even DOGE has never claimed that they have saved hundreds of billions of dollars in savings. The largest items they have claimed to achieve as savings in the U.S. budget have been debunked and they've been taken down, but even they don't falsely claim hundreds of billions of dollars worth of savings. For the record, and this is disgusting, the president made a spectacle out of praising a young man who thus far survived pediatric cancer, as if the president had something to do with that. This was in the midst of him praising DOGE. The DOGE cuts, among other things, have cut off funding for ongoing research into pediatric cancer.
Shopping mall here, and I'm intrigued about something. Day one, that was the line. On day one, the economy was just going to be so robust it's untrue. We're on quite a few days, by the way. Where are the green shoots? Look there, whole load of empty chairs. That kind of represents the economy at the moment. It is crashing. What is going on? Is it affecting you? Who actually really did think that on day one there was going to be a recovery, that something was miraculously going to change? Because as far as I can see, nothing changed at all. Like absolutely nothing. So, comment section is all yours. How do you actually feel right now? Have you spotted any of this recovery? An interesting thing is, whenever anybody from Team Trump is now appearing on cable news, they're melting down. Money, money, money. No money.
We're going to get to the border in a second, but the other report that came out was that we were considering not sharing intel, I believe, with Ukraine after the dust-up with Zelensky. Where does that stand?
The president decided to put a pause on intelligence sharing along with military aid, really to send a message to Zelensky not to take the American people for granted. This came in the wake of a statement that came from Zelensky when he said that the war would go on for a very, very long time, and that he was confident that no matter what, that American aid and support would continue to flow his way.
Some new data out just announcing layoffs released. Our senior economics reporter, Steve Leisman, joins us now with more on how much DOGE could be in tomorrow's jobs report. What do you think, Steve?
It's a tricky story here, but first let me tell you, Andrew, announced layoff in February surging by 245% to the highest level since the pandemic, with the Trump administration's efforts to reduce the federal workforce playing not the only, but the biggest part in that. The outplacement firm Challenger Gray Christmas, they're saying that announced February layoffs, not actual layoffs, but announced ones, rose to 172,000, up from just 49,000 in January. It's the highest monthly number since July 2020, the worst February since 2009. It was a mix of layoffs from the government and the private sector, including government at 63,000 announced. That includes federal workers and private government contractors. Retail, 45,000, hit by cold weather, as we know. And tech, 22,000, with HP, Meta, and Workday among the tech giants we know that announced February layoffs. The DOGE impact was the top reason cited for job cuts, followed by market and economic conditions, and then bankruptcy. The bulk of government job cuts are likely too recent to show up in tomorrow's jobs report. Workers won't be counted as unemployed until their severance runs out. But remember, roughly 30,000 federal workers, they leave their jobs monthly in a normal month. So the hiring freeze announced by President Trump on day one of his presidency, that could mean vacated jobs won't be filled. That could create some negative numbers that could drag down the headline number even as soon as tomorrow. Now, Evercore ISI, in a research piece, suggests total job losses from DOGE could be as low as 50 if the government eventually gets back to hiring, or as high as 660,000 in a worst-case scenario created by what it calls DOGE policy uncertainty. They wrote, DOGE-related uncertainty over contracts and grants could have an additional paralyzing effect on hiring at employers exposed to those funding sources or in need of regulatory approvals from agencies that are themselves paralyzed by DOGE review. Now, most forecasters that I'm reading are settling on some kind of midpoint here between total job losses of 250 to 350,000. That's federal job losses, or roughly 20 to 30,000 a month. That would be a noticeable number, But the ultimate economic impact depends on whether the private sector finds jobs for those workers, Andrew, and can make up for those job losses.